Chapter 3. A Dangerous Forest. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout sat in the old train as it rattled through the night to Calcutta. They rode in the same carriage with Sir Francis Cromarty, a fellow passenger from the Mongolia. Sir Francis was a gentleman of about 50, with red cheeks and a big white moustache. He lived in India for many years and was on his way to Benares. Fogg told Cromarty all about his bet and their trip around the world. The gentleman thought the whole thing was very exciting. He knew a lot about the country and its customs, and Fogg found this interesting and useful. "You're very lucky, Mr. Fogg. This railway line was completed only a few weeks ago." "Luck has nothing to do with it, Sir Francis. I'm sure I could make the same trip in the same time one way or another." They travelled without any problems until the morning of the second day. Then the train whistle blew, and the train slowed down and stopped. The conductor announced, "Passengers will get out here." Sir Francis turned to the conductor in surprise. "What do you mean?" "The line ends here, sir. There's another 50 miles to be laid." "But the newspapers said the railway was completed." "They were wrong, sir. All passengers know they must find their own way from Khobi to Allahabad. From there, they can catch the next train to Calcutta." The three men got off the train and walked toward the village. "What are we going to do now?" said Cromarty. Fogg was a man who would not let anything get in his way. He looked at Cromarty and smiled. Page 22. "My dear Sir Francis, I have been challenged to get around the world in 80 days, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." Passepartout then noticed a man riding an elephant and pointed him out to Fogg. Fogg immediately walked up to him. "May I buy your elephant?" "It's not for sale." "I'll give you £2,000. Passepartout and Cromarty were shocked. "You can't buy an elephant," said Cromarty. "It's madness." But Fogg took no notice and gave the money to the man, who happily took it. Another young man, standing nearby, heard their conversation. "Sirs, I can guide you to Allahabad." Fogg agreed. They bought enough food for the next part of the trip, and by 9 o'clock the elephant and its passengers were marching off into the forest. The three men sat in the seats on the elephant's back, and the young guide on its neck. Their guide was a clever young man who spoke English very well. "I know a quicker way through the forest. It will cut 20 miles out of your journey," he said, pointing away. Fogg agreed to the idea, and they travelled on until nightfall. Then they stopped to rest until the next day. Passepartout shivered with fear as the others were sleeping. He felt butterflies in his stomach as he listened to all the noises around him. The buzzing of insects, the growling of a lion or tiger, the hissing of a snake. But watching his master sleeping like a baby made him feel safe, and finally he too slept. Page 24. Next day, they started at dawn and followed the advice of their guide. "The people in this area are very wild and do not respect the English laws. We must stay away from their villages and towns if we want to be safe." They continued without any problems and were only about 4 hours from Allahabad when they suddenly heard a strange sound coming through the trees. The elephant was frightened and would not go further. The men got off, and the young guide tied the elephant to a tree. Carefully, they crept behind some bushes until they could see what was happening. The sound grew louder. Now they could see a line of men marching and playing strange instruments. They were carrying a young Indian woman who was tied to a wooden platform on their shoulders. The young woman was next to a dead body covered by a large red cloth. Cromarty looked sad. "A suttee." The young guy nodded. "What's that?" asked Fogg. "In India, the dead are burnt, not buried. It is the custom here that the wife of a dead man is burnt with him as a gift to the gods." "That's terrible!" cried Passepartout. Sir Francis nodded and explained. "These sacrifices are illegal in parts of India controlled by the English, but I'm afraid we have no power in this savage territory. Usually, wives choose to die with their husbands, but in this case it is not so," added the young guide. "What do you mean?" asked Fogg. Page 25. Everyone knows this woman's story. Her name is Aouda. She's the daughter of a rich merchant, a well-known beauty with a British education. She was forced to marry one of the old princes of this area who died a few days ago. They'll probably kill her tomorrow morning as part of the funeral." Fogg walked away from the men for a moment. He was deep in thought. Then he suddenly turned to them. "Gentlemen, we have 12 hours to spare. Do you agree that we must help this poor woman?" All three men shouted, "Yes!" But the guide looked worried. "It will be dangerous. We'd better wait till nightfall." "We are in no hurry," replied Fogg calmly.